Okay, Epstein was taken off suicide watch after supposedly trying to commit suicide only a month and a half prior, and now his lawyers are having to hire lawyers because of that decision. His cellmate was transferred, irregular and overworked guards were placed on duty, the surveillance cameras glitched, both security guards fell asleep and didn't check on Epstein. Shrieking and yelling are heard from his cell the night of his death. And now we allegedly have broken bones found in Epstein's neck, which is more common in strangulation than it is in victims who hang themselves in a suicide attempt. And the ironic kicker is that outside the confines of the highly regulated Federal Metropolitan Correctional Center, political parasites try to convince you that they're going to keep you safe through further gun regulation when they couldn't even keep one ultra-high profile sex trafficker alive long enough to stand trial. So, are you still trusting government to keep you safe? And what about the raid that was only initiated on Epstein's Island after Epstein's alleged death? Why didn't they raid the island when they picked him up at Teterboro Airport? And what about all the audio and video documentation you know they have in their possession of all the rape victims being abused by their perverted predators? Why haven't those been released? You couldn't pay somebody to write a more convoluted, ill-conceived storyline with more contradictory holes in it. And you know the whole thing's even worse when fake stream media hops on the so-called conspiracy bandwagon. As the public carries on with the great debate about what really happened or didn't happen to Jeffrey Epstein early Saturday morning in the hours before he was allegedly found dead in his cell at the MCC in an apparent suicide, the Washington Compost pile has unleashed a bombshell. First, remember how some witnesses claimed they heard horrifying shrieking coming out of Epstein's cell in the hours before his death? Well, here's one explanation for that. An autopsy report found that Epstein had endured multiple breaks in his neck bones, deepening the mystery surrounding his death last week. Or should we say his supposed death? Among the bones broken in Epstein's neck was the hyoid bone, which in men is near the Adam's apple. According to some, these breaks can occur in those who hang themselves, particularly if they're older, but they're more common in victims of homicide by strangulation. Jonathan L. Arden, president of the National Association of Medical Examiners, admitted that a hyoid break is more commonly associated with homicidal strangulation than suicidal hanging. And remember, the hyoid bone played a pivotal role in another critical New York City case. That's the death of Eric Garner. A New York cop was accused of using an improper chokehold while trying to arrest Garner and of causing his death. By the way, Garner's only crime for which he was murdered was selling cigarettes without a license to willing passers-by. A police officers' association claimed that an autopsy found there was no break of Garner's hyoid bone, and that was used to prove that the officer could not have strangled Garner and caused his death, even though we have the whole incident on video. These details, according to the Washington Post, are the first to emerge from Epstein's autopsy, which is something that'll undoubtedly be closely watched by the legions of official story critics who have emerged since his death, or his supposed death. Attorney General William Barr has described Epstein's death as, quote, an apparent suicide, but the DOJ has refused to comment on the latest findings from Epstein's autopsy. The Office of New York City's chief medical examiner, Barbara Sampson, completed an autopsy of Epstein's body on Sunday, but Sampson listed the cause of his death as pending. When asked about the neck injuries, Sampson said in a statement that no single factor in an autopsy can alone provide a conclusive answer about what happened. She said, quote, in all forensic investigations, all information must be synthesized to determine the cause and manner of death. Everything must be consistent. No single finding can be evaluated in a vacuum. The reports about Epstein's neck injuries followed revelations that the two guards responsible for guarding him had fallen asleep during the hours before his death and then falsified paperwork to try and cover their tracks. And while dozens of veteran prosecutors and prison officials were shocked that one of the most high-profile inmates in the country wasn't more closely watched, most people with two brain cells to rub together knew it wasn't going to be a clean-cut, easy ride in the Epstein case, given the fact that there are so many other high-profile names to be unearthed in this whole human sex trafficking scheme that no doubt will continue with or without Epstein. So it really doesn't matter if Epstein died or not. This is all a smokescreen for the real issue. The real issue is he was one of the heads of this huge human sex trafficking operation. And we all know that there's plenty of evidence out there to implicate a whole lot of people. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the Google Thought Police in the comments section below.